For today's episode is a good one. It's a fiery one. It is a funny one too. I'm here talking with my two good friends and just all-round legends, Elizabeth D'Alto and Elisha Tischel. They're both co-hosts of the great podcast, I love it, called Mystical Aunties. And in this episode, we really dived into a unfiltered, soul deep conversation on really setting boundaries, stepping into your power, projection, and also navigating perimenopause. So I think you're going to absolutely love it. And I love these ladies. So Elizabeth D'Alto is the founder of the School of Sacred Embodiment. She's known for her powerful blend of mysticism, erotic wisdom, and deep soulful energy work. She has been helping wild souls untame themselves for over a decade. I just love Elizabeth. She's a total vibe, and her laugh is, one of my favorite laughs on the planet. Then we have Elisha Tischel, who is also a mystic. She's an oracle and a somatic sorceress. Yes, I love that description. After a 20-year academic career, she now blends nervous system healing with the mystical arts, guiding visionary leaders into soul-aligned embodiment. So I think you're going to love this episode. Let's dive in. But before we do, as always, we're going to have a soul inquiry at the end. And I actually asked our mystical aunties to give our soul inquiry prompt today. So I know how precious your time is. Let's just take a moment to acknowledge the sacred and step into sacred space together now. Deep breath in. Deep breath out. Beautiful. Let's begin. So welcome to returning. I am here with the Mystical Aunties. For those who don't know what a Mystical Auntie is, do you want to explain? Please explain.
Yeah. Elisha, do you want to, or do you want me to?
Go ahead.
So we started this podcast, Mystical Aunties, because we are both child-free by choice people. You don't have to be child-free to be a mystical auntie, but we, in our experiences in our lives, our roles as actual aunties, it's such a unique and beautiful and amazing role, which again, also people with kids are aunties. But to be a mystical auntie, it kind of fills in this role in between the archetypal, but also the very real, like mother and the crone, right? It emerges from this place of desiring elderhood and having elders, and how some of us, because we have had just the space to tend to ourselves and cultivate a life, it's almost like we step into early eldership or elderhood in the role of auntie. Yeah. Did I miss anything?
Beautiful.
No, no, you got it. I think it really comes from this desire to love the world, in a way of familial recognition, but also maybe from my own place of having, working continually on boundaries as well, of like, what is it to hold in alignment? What is it to hold? And I feel like aunts can hold really well, right? Like they're not mommy. They're also familial. So there's something of this way of being in relationship, that auntie feels really, just beautiful.
And it's also a role where you take things that you don't take to mother.
Yeah.
It's almost, there's an opportunity to even be like a little more personal or intimate sometimes. And I say sometimes, right? Because, I know that some people who are mother and identify more with that role might be like, well, it's not that. Relax. It's just a different.
This isn't meant to offend you.
No.
But it is different.
Yeah.
Like, and I suppose it's like different phases of life. Like I'm a mum. I'm an old mum to young kids, and I don't have bandwidth. That like I know you guys do. If I didn't have kids, I know I could, but I just don't have it. So I think it's incredible to have that archetype around you. I wish I had more around me. I was actually out with my friend Katie Brockhurst. I don't know if you know her, but she's godmum to my daughter actually, and she is such a mystical auntie. Oh my gosh. And yeah, she can just be in joy more than I can in these early days, you know, and just be there, you know, whether it's like running around a statue with my kid or just kind of like sitting there telling me what's happening actually in the real world because I can't kind of get out to it. So
yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So, okay. So I kind of had an idea for this episode of like unfiltered mystical auntie conversation. And we're obviously friends, but we've not been speaking that much lately. And I had something come up around the eclipse, which I would love some mystical auntie
oh my God, I love this.
unfiltered advice that I'm requesting from you guys. As kind of like also something that we just talk about. So so I want to talk about unsolicited psychic advice.
Oh my God. Girl.
I have entire podcast episodes on my old show about unsolicited advice.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Go, Elizabeth.
Well, like, first of all, any unsolicited advice, all it takes to get consent is to be like, hey, I have a thought. Do you want it? Just such little effort to not just like dump on somebody, you know? And then, listen, people have to be boundaried enough and solid enough to say no if they don't want it. And we in ourselves have to be okay with being told no. Right? Because it's funny. This is a boundary I've had with my mom for a long time. And so I taught her. So now she'll be like, oh, I have a thought. Can I tell you? And if I'm like, no, not right now, then she'll like try to find a way to tell me anyway. And I'm like, it's not how this works. It's not it's like, as in all consent conversations, no doesn't mean try harder or find a different route. Number one. And that's just with regular advice, right? But when it's psychic, that is such a violation.
Yeah.
Especially as someone who works in the Akashic Records. And I think you do, each of you do in your own way also, right?
Yeah.
Listen, sometimes when I'm in people's records, their guides are telling me stuff and they're saying like, listen, here's the full story, but they can't hear that right now. So say this. Right? So there's also a matter of consideration. And even that, like, you have permission when you're in someone's records. I just feel like it's an extra violation and almost like violent.
Yeah.
To be dumping something psychic. Plus, not to mention, and this is an opinion. This is not like this is true, but I'd be curious for both of your opinions on this. If you're the type of person who feels comfortable giving unsolicited psychic advice, the quality of your psychic advice is probably really fucking questionable.
If you feel comfortable in the pretense that you're accessing my field and downloading information for me without consent, without a relational agreement, I don't know what I don't know what you're listening to, because it's not me. Because my sovereignty requires my consent at the soul level for you to access my information. So you playing in the psychic field and me showing up as an archetypal expression, or you being attached to me in some way, or you trying to cord to me to some way, and then you wanting to say you're giving me something is the biggest ick. It's just icky.
I actually had this happen last night. A woman was like, really? I'm just reading the energy. And you know what? This is what I love about being my auntie.
Whose energy are you really reading?
Right, exactly.
This is what I love about being my auntie years. I just let her. I was like, cool. I'm not even going to take the minute. I'm not even going to give your misread have fun.
You know, there's something interesting here in our profile. So Rebecca and I share profile 5-1, right?
Human design.
And that profile receives so much projection.
Yes.
So it's quite common for people to assume that they're accessing me, and it's their projection. It's whoever they've cast me as. And from that place, like, again, when it comes with a certain tone or earnestness, I can say, as you did great. Just, sure, do what you do. It doesn't need to enter my field. I don't need to hear about it. I don't need to know about it. But I also think that there is a place where it crosses over beyond projection and becomes a little more about manipulation. And I think that a lot of times one of the hardest things for well-meaning, delusional people to hear is that they're actually using these things as a manipulative tool. And I think that place of us not understanding that when we're not clear, we're actually distorting in energy. We're distorting the field. And if we were to give somebody that distortion, it manipulates things. We could possibly, we could have an energetic interference in their field that we now become karmically responsible for. That is not what we want to be doing, right? Like Carolyn May says, if you knew what you were doing, you would not be playing around with this stuff.
Hello.
Right? Like if you knew the karma you're creating, you would not be playing in the energy world in other people's stuff, because you're creating all types of knots and binds and all of this stuff. And when we wonder, like, why, if so many of us know truth or are coming into more clarity around truth, why is the world not changing in the way that we need it to be changing? Like, why are these things not shifting? Why is the current kind of the underbed not changing? And I think so much of it is because we're not cleaning up this type of karmic bullshit that we've created in other lives, and we were creating again by dabbling, by playing, by being in the shallow end and the masturbatory aspects of energy work.
Yes.
Well, great conversation, everyone. Thanks for stopping.
Frickin', I love it. And I think this is why, like, for me,
Mystical Aunties Unleashed.
Yeah, I was also just like, while you're talking, like, playing around with, like, the title of this episode, I'm like, this could be the whole episode, that I'm like unfiltered.
Unsolicited.
What did I say before? Unsolicited advice from the Mystical Aunties. I'm like, no, not that. Unfiltered advice about unsolicited advice.
There you go.
Unfiltered.
No, but I so appreciate what you just said, because so it was like eclipse time, right? And I knew the pattern. And there was like a whole lot of social scenarios that I knew I was stepping into. This one just it was the confusion that allowed the kind of like to kind of come to me. So first of all, is someone I don't know very well, but is linked to someone I do know very well. And it began with a compliment about me in the past. And so I was like, oh, that's really sweet. That's really sweet. And then it went, and now, and it was like complete judgment, complete opinion, like not based on truth or whatever, but potentially really hurtful.
Right.
And it felt like, I don't even want to say snake energy, because anytime I say snake, it's like, it feels like it's against the goddess.
Right.
But it felt like really kind of like coming, like, sideswiping
venomous
energy.
But like actual like venomous.
Exactly.
There you go.
Yeah. But I think you said that word, Elisha, manipulative. That's what it was.
Yeah.
And because it began with the compliment, and because I don't really know this person.
That's right.
I'd also, it was a judgment on, like, a very spiritual judgment as well on me.
There's the
since
best.
becoming a mother, and this person, anyway, there's so many things wrong with it. And I was just so shocked that I was literally speechless. I didn't know what to say. And so I just ended up turning my body around and talking to the person on the other side, because I was just like, I literally, I couldn't even process what had just happened. And then I'm like, what I wish I said was, and I don't know if I've never been this like assertive before, particularly like, in a like
social situation. Yeah,
exactly. So I tend to try and be more kind, and but what I wish I said, and I don't know if I would have said it, but is you have no permission to be in my energy field, and stop projecting on me.
Yes,
and
exactly.
third of all, do not read anyone when you're drinking. I was stone cold sober.
You were drinking too?
Hell no. Okay, we just took the ethics to a whole
Listen.
exactly. A whole nother
My
level.
current favorite meme says the lion, the witch, and the audacity of this bitch. And I feel like that is the perfect response. Yo, that's what? But wow. Wow.
And this is like quite a conscious gathering. It was.
Of course it was.
Supposedly.
Listen, let me tell you how I don't go to Elisha and I pretty regularly comes up on the show that I don't attend things, and these are some of the reasons.
Yeah.
Because it's just like there's always someone waiting around to like throw a dagger at someone else because they got some shit going on.
Yeah.
And it
And
tends
this is
to be
after I
people-
listened to them talk about like how spiritually gifted they were, and
Oh yeah. Listen,
for about
this
an
is-
hour, and then they
this is the
insulted
flow
me,
chart,
saying
right?
the opposite.
I'm
that I'd
announcing how
changed.
spiritual I am. I'm letting everybody know because that's like how they give themselves permission to then just like fire away. It's like, well, I've already let you all know how great I am, so shouldn't you want to hear this from me?
Yeah.
Spiritual
exactly.
narcissism at its
Lord.
finest.
So
Lord.
what
Yeah.
would you guys say in that scenario?
I probably would have laughed.
Left?
or laughed?
Laughed.
Laughed.
Oh,
What kind of laugh would you give?
the fuck you laugh. And I would have probably followed up with like, oh, that's so funny that you think that.
Yeah.
That's a really good answer.
Wow. Yeah, I would have been this. I just did it twice thinking about it. Like the facial expression of like,
Which is basically, if you're listening, say what?
yeah. Oh, sorry. Right. We're seeing each other. Right. So I'm like, it's a little bit of a head tilt.
Head
with the,
tilt.
like, I squint, lean back. Like
I squint, lean back,
I
head
squint,
tilt
lean back.
emoji.
through nonverbal cues, I'm letting you know that I'm taken aback, not in a good way, by what you just said.
Yeah.
And then I'm leaning back in, debating, because I'm different from you. I'm
Yeah.
always the person who's going to say some shit that people don't want to hear. But I have learned to go, how much do I want to bite here? Is it even worth it? Right?
Yeah.
Like, do I read this person for filth? I usually don't do that anymore. It's interesting. I'm more likely to do that if people are being harmful to others, not me.
Right.
Because I just don't
Yeah.
care. Like, you know, I don't care. You're not affecting me. Right?
Yeah.
But I like Alicia's. One of the things I've come to love over the years, instead of saying something direct, because I am also aware of my energy. And if I'm direct like that, it's quite harmful. It can be. Because someone who's behaving this way, they're fragile. Right? So, like, there's part of me who's like, all right, am I going to throw the fireball or not? That feels like an ethical question for me, regardless of what they started it or however. I love to ask a question. And my favorite question is, why would you say that to me? Because then it puts it back on them
I wish I said that.
to be like,
Why would you say that
did
to me?
I say that? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Why would
that
you
was
say
the thing
that
that
to me?
confused me so much, because I'm like, okay, even if it was true, like, if it was true, you should definitely not say that.
especially in front
Right.
of other people. Like, there's just so
Yeah.
many levels to the like
So many levels.
Lion, the witch, and the audacity of this bitch.
I think it's interesting for me in terms of those situations. It definitely, the proximity to the person in terms of our relational field would determine whether I would do a follow-up in terms of either in that moment a question or to sort of say, you know, what's really going on here? What do we actually need to unpack?
Yeah.
Or, you know, do you realize how inappropriate and unethical this whole thing just became?
Whoa, that's so good.
You know, the other thing I might do is put on my own little, maybe a spiritual narcissist.
Do I have permission to read you?
And say, so, well, I, as a teacher, would never do that shit, darling.
I'm
Because
loving
that
this accent.
right? I think sometimes, I think there could be this way that sometimes we think we have to take the high road or we have to have the right thing to say. And I actually think sometimes, like, you match a bitch with a bitch. Right? I actually don't need to, I don't need to be all enlightened in this moment. Like, if it's time to get a little scrappy, like, if you're being manipulative, then my counter of that needs to match that aspect. And then sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, the best thing for me to do is to stay open palmed, open heart, and just, walk away. But I don't sort of have a litany of like, oh, this is when it has to happen, right? So I can be just very responsive in the moment. But I think the biggest thing for me is to recognize, especially with a 5-1 system, that projectors be projecting. And I don't mean that I don't mean that the human design projectors. I just mean people projecting, right? So projectors don't come at me. But that idea that it's like, oh, right, I have a system that people are going to want to engage with in that way. And so for me, it's like, I can't take their lack of clarity personal. That doesn't mean I can't personally engage with it in terms of like what they're creating, but it means I'm not going to take it in. I'm not going to let it, I'm not going to even give them more field space to affect me.
You know what I also love? And I was reminded of this, again, obviously, love memes, reels, social media. This reel recently that I shared in a Saturday Sillies post that was like, you guys, like, don't underestimate like the usefulness of the word yikes as a response. Because again, it really is also something that someone says something like that and you just go, yikes.
Yikes. Oh wait, but it's the head, you do the squint, the head tilt, and the yikes a little bit, right? Yikes.
Or like, there's just so many different ways, right? It could be like, yikes. Like, you can really play around with the execution of the yikes, but either way, it says so much with one word.
Oh, I'm totally taking that on.
It was really interesting because this said person also, the compliment was around how much light and joy used to be in my laugh. And so imagine, so I was like, imagine if I just went, mwah.
There's just so many, like, you should be like, I'm just thinking of all the, man, you should see me cry. Like, what, like, wow. People.
All right. So the next topic I want to talk about is perimenopause. Are you guys in it? Have you?
So hard. I'm a perimenopause. So hard.
So hard.
Yeah. So hard.
That's
Elizabeth's just at the beginning. She's not really there.
I'm not really having this experience.
Yeah, I'm discovering, like, from day 21 to, because my period's changing a lot. But when I end up like that week before, I literally am like, I literally can't get out of bed. Like, I got an Aries moon. I can push myself through anything. Like, it's, I'm recovering from that gift. But when I need to, I've always been able to do it. But I just literally can't anymore. Like, I literally can't get out of bed for about a week.
Yeah. It's intense and it's confusing because you come to know yourself in so many certain ways, and you're tracking cycles and parts of yourself, and then perimenopause just sort of rips all of that open, and you're like, who the fuck am I? Who am I? Who is this creature? But the thing that I find the worst is the ear itching.
Oh, I don't have that.
Have you had this yet? Oh
no,
I didn't know it was a perimenopause
what
thing.
Part of
forever. All the part that you can't get to, like way down deep, ear itching.
Really?
So weird, right? Yeah, the worst. I don't have the heart palpitations. I haven't had any kind of that sort of things. But I think for me, what I've just noticed is any place where I have had also a ceiling on experience, in perimenopause, that ceiling has busted open. So the experiences, the way I experience things, the way I experience myself, the way I experience the world has I already thought I was an extremist. It has gone to greater extremes.
Yeah.
Right. And so the places of like, how do you, for me, the question's been like, how do I keep finding my center while living in the extremes of myself? It's been an intense, the first few years for me were mainly physical, crazy periods, cycling, low energy, high energy, like a lot more kind of imbalances. And the last, I would say 18 to 24 months has been so emotional. So emotional.
I think I am having a little of that beginning, but like my cycle, I've been a regular menstruator like my whole life, but I will have some very short cycles sometimes, like 24 days or longer, like going to 31. So I've had a little more like cycle variation. And like Rebecca said, I am actually noticing my energy used to really dip like days 1 to 3, but now that's happening in PMS. That's happening like day 25 on or whatever, or like the 2 or 3 days before. That's really where my energy plummets. But I'm not having any like I have some friends who are like really in it with it. Yeah, I don't know. Can I ask, Rebecca, did you want to say anything about that before I ask a different type of question about this?
No, that's cool.
I am curious. I've been making an observation. This is kind of how I am. I kind of like to watch how people engage and interact with things. And I have some hypotheses. I don't want to be judging people, but I have some hypotheses about how the way people engage with it affects it. And I'm curious if you all have witnessed this. Like, I find it's kind of like anything, though, when people are like, I will just, for lack of a better term, say over-identifying. Like, there are people who are making perimenopause their whole entire personality now, and they're having a very hard time with it. And I wonder if they did that less, if it would not be as hard.
I wonder if it's
because it is a bit on trend.
Exactly. Was it so hard they had to make their identity?
But this is what I'm saying. Like, I don't want to be like, especially because I'm not really experiencing it so deeply yet. It's like easy to sit out here when I'm not like in the throes and be like, you know. So I don't want to be that way. But I'm curious if you all have observed, because we're in the age group. Like, a lot of our friends are experiencing this, have experienced it. You know.
I think one of the things that I see is that, and again, you know, maybe it's filtering, like I wasn't in this place, so I wasn't paying attention. I didn't hear topics about it, but I feel like I've never heard people talk about it the way we're talking about it now. And which makes me like really proud of our generation to be like, we just keep untaking the lid off of everything. I do actually think there's something, not about making it our personality, but I do think there is something about really bringing it forward, because I do think it is, we have done such a poor job societally about rites of passage, right? And it's one of the reasons why we don't have the power in our bodies of our actual life force and our light the way we need to. And I think that for a lot of us who've been on this spiritual journey or this awakening journey, this self-development journey, coming through perimenopause, all of a sudden we realize what we've been practicing for. We realize what we've been preparing for, and that like the body is literally going through these cellular chemical shifts. And that part of that is the process of being able to actually hold the fullness of my essence, my power, my soul in my body. So for me, it feels very much like this transfiguration journey that I'm on, and this cellular place. So I do think that, though, if we get caught up in the oh woe is me part of all the symptoms, we might be missing the actual alchemical crucible that we're in. And I think for me, that's really what I'm interested in amplifying and leveraging for my own awakening, is like, how is this the crucible that is showing me a fuller journey of what it is to be human? And I think it's also really humbled me in the fact that, like, recognizing like there's so many ways I've wanted this amount of energy and power in my body before, and my body literally could not do it because it was putting energy towards other things such as reproduction and, you know, all of these different aspects of the actual biological journey. And so it's made me really very much more compassionate and humble for the actual trajectory of our human journey, And this, we're, again, societally, we have all this pressure. Like, you're supposed to know who you are before you even are 18. You're supposed to have it all together. You're supposed to do all these things. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And it's one of the reasons why Elizabeth and I just had this conversation where she's like, she hates the archetype of late bloomer. And I really love the archetype of the late bloomer, because for me, this is what this late blooming is. And it's not that I'm late, but there's something of the sort of the cheekiness and just the remembrance of like, you could never have been this much in and of yourself before this moment. You've always been just coming to this place. And also just the complete like, oh shit, we don't actually know what the body is meant to do. And I think perimenopause is actually attempting to teach us these things. And I do think probably there's ways that we're not able to go through it fully in its fullness because of other chemicals we've been taking and putting into our bodies, because of the lack of minerals in our food, because of other modern day issues, right? That we might be amplified in our suffering because of other things that we don't know that are disrupting our body and our hormones beforehand. But I just think I have mad love for every woman who is in perimenopause.
And listen, I especially feel
it is real.
Rebecca, women like you, I was having a conversation about this with a friend of mine who's 48 and her kids are adult. She's like, I don't know how these moms in perimenopause are raising these young children right now, because you do not have the energy for that shit.
It is. It's brutal, but it's not even just energy. It's so. When we change like that, we're literally, and this is why perimenopause into menopause sets us up as being incredible leaders. And I can feel that within me. Yeah. And like, I look back at my 20s and 30s and I self-sacrificed, and I was meant to. That's the phase you're meant to. You're relational in that sense. Right. And anyone who I was around, whether it was like a system of work that I was living in, my career, my partner, my family, or whatever, I was constantly giving, right? Working, whatever it was. And then as I've gotten older, while I've had young kids, and the whole perception as being a mum, particularly of young kids, is like self-sacrifice, right? And when you have young kids, you do need to do that. It's the phase of life that you are in, and you can get lots of help and all of that. But hey, the tribe is really not around us. Like even if in the village, it's just our society isn't that. And so what I think is devastating for older mums going through this with young kids, and I'm sure mums in general, is that we think there's something wrong with us. Right. That we are like unable to overextend, especially if you've been able to do it in the past. Right. Totally. That's been the hardest thing for me. Absolutely. I think that I haven't had hot flushes. I think you call flashes in the States.
Hot flash.
Two different words.
That's funny.
Flush, yeah. But what I have had for a couple of years now is sweating through the night. So I guess it's like the night sweats, right? And I also had this postpartum. I actually think I had quite a lot of symptoms postpartum, but I just thought it was postpartum, right? And in a way, I think it was, in a sense, because I think when you do give birth, you can connect in with like the ancestral field, you know? And for me, the type of person that I am, or soul maybe, I definitely processed a lot in the ancestry and the collective when I stepped into motherhood. And so I was thinking it was that, and maybe it was just postpartum, or maybe it was a combination of the two. Right. But what I am sure of is that internal heat that I'm feeling, as uncomfortable as it is, it's burning something up. It's burning the patriarchy within me up. It's burning the little girl up. It's burning up those parts of me that were inherited rather than chosen by me. That's right. And I heard something really cool around like when you know, menopause is like a moment in time. I didn't know this a few years ago. It's like I thought it was like a phase of life. It's actually a moment in time after you stop having your period for a certain amount of time. But when you release your last egg, I think something changes within you, because those eggs are passed on from your grandmother, from her
Yeah.
grandmother, her
Right.
grandmother. And I think that there's something that happens in the relational field of women self-sacrificing and looking after and, you know, setting ourselves up for, whether it's raising families ourselves or nurturing, you know,
Right.
it changes. And I
Absolutely.
can feel this within myself. Like, I am definitely becoming way more feisty, way more, and I'm finding my hormones are a bit all over the place. So I'm struggling to kind of like restrain it. Do you know what I mean? It's like, whoa, it's coming like this. My doctor described it like it's a light, you know, when a light globe goes, that's what happens in perimenopause. I'm like, that's exactly how I feel right now.
Yeah.
And I don't, it's not good. It's not bad. It just is.
Yeah.
But I think it's really helpful talking to people, particularly who have gone through it, which is pretty much every woman on the planet. But I was talking to our mutual friend Elizabeth Kay Dayton about it, and it was actually her. She has shared a lot with me, including the from day 21 on bit, because she was really tracking her periods and them changing and like studying it, and that bit of information really helped me, because I was just like, what is happening to me? Am I sick? Is there something wrong, you know? And I think this is the thing, like, not knowing the information makes you think there's something wrong with you, you know? And then you're on this endless search for this condition, which is called nature.
So here's something that comes up for me with various friends. I'm so glad you brought this up, because you're giving me, I'm having like a cool kind of illumination around this that I'll share with you in a second. But have you all ever read the book Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents?
Oh,
Now,
yeah.
in that book, they talk about internalizers and externalizers. I'm more of an externalizer. So this piece of like, what's wrong with me? That's not where my conversation goes. You know, like there's something wrong with me. Mine will be like, what the fuck is going on out here? You know? But so a couple of things that you both have said, like that piece of shedding the last egg, right? Like what I'm realizing is two things that have really been bugging me about perimenopause, that I've been like just observing in myself to be like, you know, what's this about? Is just like the disproportionality of also just like the marketing of it all, right? It's like overall, the medical industrial complex couldn't be bothered until relatively recently to figure out how different things affect women than men. Like, it's insane to me the amount of things that weren't even looked at in women till like 40 years ago. You got to be kidding me with that part, right? And so just like the disproportionate, and I know I also am a woman, and we live in an algorithm world, so I'm mostly seeing things, but like men are not being marketed to the way women are about their changing hormones, which also happens to them. Like I was literally at a group dinner last night, and one of the men at the table is 50 years old, and he was like, the two hills I will die on that I think everyone should know about is how like Ozempic and like those types of things, and TRT, which is, we know HRT, hormone replacement, but testosterone replacement, are life-changing for men. I've never heard a man blurt out TRT, you know? And I've done a lot of dating, and men tell me all kinds of things all the time. So that, because I've been so like kind of angsty and agitated about people love selling stuff to women and making women super self-conscious and getting them to spend money on shit to fix themselves. And I see that happening in a way around perimenopause. But then the second piece is just focusing on the symptoms versus the whole beautiful transition, like Elisha is talking about, of like the whole entire experience, right? Not just making it about like the fucking hot flashes or this or that, or this isn't happening, like just the physical, but like what's actually happening, like energetically, emotionally, the relationship between hormones and both of those things. Like there's just so much more depth to this than just I'm sweating at night. What the fuck is wrong with me? You know?
Totally.
Right.
And I think that, you know, when Rebecca's talking about this, that's burning up and the deconditioning that's happening.
I love that.
I think some of the place that we get stuck in, and I can remember I didn't even know I was going through perimenopause Because I thought, I'm too young. How can I be going through? Like, I remember recognizing like all of these coping strategies are breaking down. Right?
Yes.
And these ways that I used to just be able to survive and hold it all together, as you said, push through, make stuff happen, make something out of nothing, hold it all together, hold everyone's pieces, keep it all in my head, be on 365 degrees, all of that capacity that in many ways, even as I was trying to do it holistically, I was trying to do it like all these, it was still coming from a very capitalistic, ambitious, productive, driven, validating framework. And when that began to crumble and those identities that I had sourced through myself of like knowing myself as a fast, highly capable, high achieve, like all of those types of things, as that began to crumble. And that journey that I would say that was the first thing of perimenopause for me. And I did like nothing else I noticed, but I noticed all of these coping mechanisms start to sweep out. All of these changes. And I would say literally also too, this happened for me pretty early because I would say I was still in my late 30s. And I want to kind of track it to pretty much the same year that I've for sure at 38 said, I am completely closing the door. I will not have a child in this life. And I'd been in that place of like, probably not for several years. And I really just did a ritual with myself and really just sat down and was like, okay, do you want this? Are you going to let it happen? Are you just going to see? Or do you want to really kind of take full claiming here? And I decided I was just going to take the full claiming of like, okay, I'm going to close that chapter. And I'm just going to really see how I can mother the world in another way. And I think at that point, probably maybe my body was like, okay, great. Well, we don't have to hold this anymore. And so the crumbling started. And I think that that's part of what we're going through is like all of a sudden your body feels like it's betraying you in a certain way because we've been able. And I think as a mind body somatic practitioner who really dove deep into this work because everyone would say like, oh, your mind-body connection is so great. I'm like, no, my mind-body is so fucked because I have so much control over my body. I can dominate my body to do all of these crazy things and all of this stuff for performance. It's not a good relationship. I am completely colonizing myself, right? And so I think that when this begins to shift naturally, we all are going to go on this journey. Right. The question is, though, are we going to take the medicine that's being offered to us? Right. So you're going to have to meet all the ways you've colonized yourself, all the ways that patriarchal voice and framework has lived inside of you, all the ways that your conditioning has become your personality and that you've prided yourself on your capacities and all of these things. And there's nothing wrong with the fact. I mean, there's things. OK, there's nothing wrong with us that we were operating inside of that system and that we took it on. Right. We were just being in the field that we are societally. And also there is so much more to each one of us individually, right? And this sovereignty reweaving that I think begins to happen in the perimenopausal journey, or for women kind of from that 38 to, 65 portal, where all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I'm rebirthing myself. To also be doing that while birthing babies, I think is like, that is hardcore.
Also, like, why the fuck does the portal need to be 27 years long? You just said
seriously,
like, and I'm like, Jesus Christ.
What the?
I'm not saying that medically. I'm not saying that medically. I'm just saying that.
There's just things that I revolt against. It's fine.
Fucking intense being a woman.
It's so intense.
Like it really, it's so intense. Really is. I remember seeing like what happens with a man through his life when he like his hormones. It's kind of like whereas the woman is like
so essentially, if you're listening, Rebecca is drawing like a nice little simple plateau up and down, and then like
a simple line,
voluminous, chaotic mountains and fluctuations for us.
Honestly, Elisha, I so appreciate what you shared there, and what I'm loving is the weaving of the initiation with the physical symptoms.
Yeah,
because I think I've known the two, but it's when you're in it, it's hard to kind of like be like, oh, that is the thing. Like the way I've colonized myself. So what I got when you were saying was there's this one symptom that I'm like quite shocked by, because I've always prided myself with Virgo. I'm like, you know, if you name a time in history, I'll be like, I was wearing a red velvet dress with black shoes and fishnets. I would never wear that, but you know, and I'd be able to say what you were wearing, what color the car was that drove us, like attention to detail. I retain all the information. I'm able to kind of like scan and control and all of that. And I know that's not necessarily a good thing. Okay, it's my husband's birthday on Saturday, right? And birthdays are a big deal for me. I not so much for him, but I would always like have the presents organized and all that. And I'm like, oh shit, I haven't got him anything. And so I just like casually say to him last night, because I'm thinking I can buy stuff tomorrow, it's okay, I'll go to the shop, that's all right. And I go to him casually, is there anything like in particular that you want, you know, on top of like what I'm going to get you or whatever? And he's like, babe, you've already bought my present, don't you remember? And I'm like, no recollection, like zero. And he's like, do you remember all those pots and pans? They're in the big box in the boot room, da 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 da. I completely forgot. There was no part of my brain that retained that information. Yeah. Now, I cannot believe that. That is not who I was. Yeah. Literally. Yeah. I could not remember it. When he said it, it was as if it kind of like was able to come back into the loop of Birthday and Craig, my husband's name, but it was somewhere else. And I wonder, maybe that is overstimulation with kids, or maybe that is there's whole, like it's kind of clearing away the stuff that does not need to be there. You don't need to know about the pots and pans. I don't need to remember what we were wearing.
Stuff, like just
10 years
stuff
ago.
That doesn't actually matter. That is not
doesn't matter
for like humanity or some higher soul purpose. It's like, because I was wondering, like, did you feel bad about that, or were you like? Because I would be laughing hysterical. I'd be like, oh shit! I was like, you know.
I was like, amazing. Oh, no, I actually pretend. I was like, oh, yeah.
That's so funny.
Because I didn't want to admit that I like thought I didn't have a present for him, because I am planning on it.
So funny.
But I was like, awesome.
Yeah.
Amazing.
By the way, everyone, it's Craig, not Craig.
It's so true. If you're from America, you will say my husband's name
Craig,
wrong.
like Greg with a C. That is not it.
It's like, it's not Craig.
Craig. So funny.
Craig.
It's so funny.
Our friend Binny, who is an 86-year-old American from Texas, she was literally there for my daughter's birth. She like lives where we used to live. Like she's part of our family. When we're in Spain, we finally told her that she was saying Craig's name wrong all these years, and she didn't get it. She's like, "What do you mean, Craig? It's Craig, right? It's Craig."
We can't even hear the difference, right?
Like, what do you mean? So funny.
That's what I said.
Getting all these voice notes from her going, Craig.
Vinny is a legend. I love it. I'm so glad we talked about this. When I turned 40, a friend's happy birthday message included, "Welcome to perimenopause," and I went, "Don't do that." Because again, like, but I'm also, because here's the piece though. I'm just, deal with whatever you're dealing with, however you want to deal with it, but just like, I'm not ever going to be the one to be commiserating about things, right? Like, if we're going to talk about it, let's talk about it. Let's be super real. But like, there's just an energetic about like commiseration that, again, this is I don't want to be staunch about this, but I just feel like that energy is like never helpful. And I also, because I feel like there's a difference. It might be semantics for some people, but for me, I'm like, there's a difference between like venting, but the commiseration that wants to like enroll people in the experience that you're having. And like the word misery is in there, right? Like, join me in my misery. And I'm like, I will witness you. I will hold space for you. I'm not joining in the misery. That's just not me. Like, I'm not gonna do that. And because I don't think talking about that something is hard, that it's brutal, that you're suffering, that's not misery. Like, to me, that's not commiserating. That's just telling the truth. But with the commiserating piece, it's like, come suffer with me. I can't be I feel better if other people are suffering too. Because from a liberatory place, I'm like, I don't want other people to be suffering. I'm not trying to drag people into suffering with me. I don't know. Maybe I'm being something.
No, I think that there's a way that we're so starved for the depth of connection and for that weaving of real belonging that our default is commiserating.
That's how people find
right?
the connection
I
and belonging.
remember totally. It was really, at some point, I was really confronted with the fact that I had taken on a very stressed hustle identity. And not that I wasn't experiencing those types of things in the way that I was running my system, but the identity part of it was, I was like, for the first time in my life, I was like, I am socially cool. Like, I understand what we're doing socially. We're all crazy.
I love you.
I was like, I finally can walk into the break room and have like a normal conversation. I don't know how to do small talk. We just talk about how stressed we are.
We just, in the episode we recorded last week, talked about how Elisha is like, I'm not sure I know how to socialize.
I love this.
Oh.
So I was like, I got really into this identity because I was like, oh, I can have conversations everywhere with everyone if I'm just stressed. So I was so happy to be enrolled in everyone's misery because it's like so precious, right?
Wow.
And also really shows the depth of desire for connection and the lack of like social outlets where that was held and so it's like, it was sort of like, okay, I have to like shed this identity, you know, and like back in my 30s, I was like, well, how do you make friends now if you're not going to be the stressed one? Like, how do you do this? You know? Yeah. So I think I have a lot of tenderness around our commiserating because I think what I often hear from people is like, I'm wanting to be witnessed. I'm wanting to be known. And I don't know. We don't know how to do it.
1000%. It was the dinner I was at last night. It's this cool thing. It's this app called Time Left where, have you heard of this? You go to dinners, like you fill out a bunch of questions and then you go to some group dinner, you get paired up with like 5 to 7 strangers. For some people, it would be like their nightmare, but I'm moving back to New York. A lot of my friends don't live here anymore. And I'm like, oh, let me just go meet some people, you know? And I really am an extrovert. So I'm like, whatever, it's a dinner. And there was a person at the dinner who, you know how some people just like can't read the room and they can't really tell when they've been talking and people are starting to like make eye contact with each other to be like, when is this going to be over? But I always just really feel for those people because I'm like, they probably don't have a lot of people listening to them, you know?
I'm probably that person.
No, because you can.
I don't think you would ever be that person.
Because you
There's
can read the
no
room.
way you're that
There's
person.
no way you could be sitting in a
totally read
small
the
group
room.
of 7 people and not realize that 3 of them are making eye contact.
No, my hypervigilance
You
would never allow me to be that person. Yeah,
I'm not making that wrong either because I'm always just like,
no.
I'm having both experiences. I'm witnessing you with so much compassion and I'm really wishing it would end.
Totally.
Well, on that note, we're going to end this conversation.
On that note.
But we're going to continue it on our
We're going to read
note.
the room.
I'm so excited. We can keep chatting.
No, but really, we do need to.
She's like, no, the clock, actually.
Time in this case is linear. We're operating in linear time here, people.
3 minutes on the hour.
Perfect.
Well, thank you so much for being here, Mystical Aunties. If you were to, I don't know, leave us with a message, what would you leave us with?
My message is we're going to have part 2 of this conversation, so come listen to that also. It's going to be equally juicy.
Yeah, on the Mystical Aunties podcast. I want to say go follow Mystical Aunties and we will join you with that follow-up conversation as well. Is there anything you want to say, Elisha?
Yeah, I would just say I think like my takeaway from this conversation is just a remembrance that whatever you're going through physically, emotionally, it is the journey and you're not doing it wrong even when it feels like parts of you are not complying. And so it's just an ask for support and that we're always so worthy of love. So just focus there.
I was just being cheeky, by the way. My
Beautiful.
message is really,
Beautiful.
there's nothing wrong with you. You're just at the moment in time you're
Yeah.
in, whatever is happening, and like, stop, even whether you're internalized or not, like, try to stop making yourself wrong about stuff if you do that. You're a person. Being a person is weird and hard.
Beautiful.
It's so hard.
So I normally end the podcast with a soul inquiry. And so I think this one will be, if you knew there was nothing wrong with you, what would you do?
I love it.
And I caught myself before on camera having a sip of my coffee, and I realized I've got a plastic Peter Rabbit
Oh my
cup.
God, I love it. She's a mom.
So cute.
Little kids.
Because we're getting our kitchen floors done, and so we're like camping, and so I'm like, we literally in the sunroom, we've got a couple of cups.
Oh my God, I love it.
And I'm like, people are gonna think I'm
Perfect.
freaking crazy with a
So
little
on brand.
kid's cup. So on brand, yeah.
Look at you, not tracking the details anymore.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Peter Rabbit cups.
She just doesn't care
Just doesn't
anymore.
care.
That's right. Yeah.
Love it.
That's why that laughter doesn't have the light anymore. I don't know. That sounds pretty light-filled laughter to me.
All right.
Love you guys. Soul Inquiry is a practice where we enter into a direct dialogue with our inner self, with our sacred self, with our soul. So today's Soul Inquiry prompt is, what are you clinging to for fear of nothing coming to take its place? What are you clinging to for fear of nothing coming to take its place? Now, as always, it's time to commit to a grounded action. So what is one baby step that you can take in that direction of what came through for you today? All right, we made it to the end. Let's take a deep breath in as we close our sacred space that we've stepped into together today. I'm so grateful for you being here. If you'd like to keep returning to yourself and returning here with me, then I so appreciate it if you would hit subscribe. If you love this podcast or video, leaving a review or a comment or a 5-star rating really helps others to find it too. And you can find all of the notes from today's show over at rebeccacampbell.me/podcast. Thanks for returning.